Welcome back to Kleppers Corner. Today in history. Today is December 13th, a date that feels less like a square on a calendar and more like a pressure point on the human timeline. You press here and everything leaks out. Ambition, belief, cruelty, brilliance, and the occasional guy in a spacesuit saying something poetic while standing on another world. December 13th is one of those days where history looks at us and says, "Oh, you wanted subtlety?" Because on this date, humanity didn't dabble, we committed. We sailed into the unknown, argued with God, marched soldiers into meat grinders, measured stars, committed atrocities, stepped on the moon, locked down nations, rewired Europe, and still found time to wear candles on our heads and call it a holiday. So let's take a walk through this strange intersection of faith, violence, discovery, and hope, and try to make sense of why December 13th keeps showing up like history's most overachieving group project. Segment 1, December 13th, 1577. Francis Drake sets sail and Spain gets nervous. On December 13th, 1577, 5 ships quietly slipped out of Plymouth Harbor, and Spain immediately should have checked under its bed. Francis Drake wasn't just going on a little boating trip. This was state-sponsored chaos, wrapped in plausible deniability and financed by people who definitely owned fancy collars. Officially, this was a trade mission. Unofficially, it was a floating middle finger to the Spanish Empire. Drake's flagship, the Pelican, would later become the Golden Hind, which is what you rename your ship when you survive storms, mutiny vibes, and the realization that your captain absolutely will execute you if you test him. This voyage mattered because it rewrote the rules of empire. England wasn't supposed to be in the Pacific. That was Spain's private swimming pool. Drake cannonballed in anyway, stole treasure, mapped coastlines, circled the globe, and came home rich enough that Queen Elizabeth I knighted him on the deck of his ship, which is monarchy speak for "this piracy worked out great." And just like that, England graduated from annoying island nation to global menace. Segment 2, December 13th, 1642. Abel Tasman finds New Zealand and immediately regrets stopping. 65 years later, December 13th strikes again, this time with Abel Tasman, sailing for the Dutch East India Company, which was basically capitalism with sails. Tasman was hunting for Terra Australis, a mythical southern supercontinent that Europeans were convinced existed because symmetry feels nice. Instead, he spotted what we now know as New Zealand. Tall mountains, dramatic coastlines, absolutely not Statenland like he thought. Europeans were very bad at guessing geography back then, which makes sense because half of their maps were vibes-based. Things went downhill fast when Tasman encountered the Maori. Miscommunication turned lethal. Several sailors were killed, and Tasman renamed the area Murderer's Bay, which is the least self-aware naming choice in exploration history. Still, this sighting mattered. It confirmed the Pacific was bigger, stranger, and less cooperative than Europe expected. Discovery didn't always come with handshakes. Sometimes it came with arrows. Segment 3, December 13th, 1545. The Council of Trent and the Catholic Church says, absolutely not. Now let's pivot from ships to scripture. On December 13th, 1545, the Council of Trent opened, and the Catholic Church officially entered its "we're doubling down" era. This was the Church's response to the Protestant Reformation. Martin Luther had nailed his complaints to a door, and Rome responded by calling a council that lasted 18 years and produced enough decrees to power a law firm. The Council of Trent clarified doctrine, rejected faith alone, embraced faith plus works, reaffirmed tradition alongside Scripture, and declared the Latin Vulgate the official Bible. Translation? The Church wasn't meeting Protestants halfway. It was building a wall and installing a gift shop. Trent reshaped Catholicism into a more centralized, disciplined institution. Seminaries were standardized, corruption was addressed, and Europe was spiritually locked into centuries of conflict that would make Thanksgiving dinner arguments look quaint. Segment 4, December 13th, 1862. Fredericksburg and the cost of bad planning. December 13th, 1862 brings us to Fredericksburg, Virginia, where the Union Army learned what happens when logistics fail and optimism replaces strategy. General Ambrose Burnside ordered wave after wave of soldiers to charge Marye's Heights, a fortified Confederate position behind a stone wall. This wasn't bravery meeting destiny. This was bravery meeting math, and math won. Union troops crossed open fields into concentrated rifle and artillery fire. By nightfall, more than 12,000 Union soldiers were casualties. Confederate losses were less than half that. One Southern officer famously said, "A chicken couldn't survive that field," which is a wild thing to say unless you've emotionally detached from reality. Fredericksburg shattered Northern morale and proved that modern war had outgrown heroic charges. Industrial warfare had arrived, and it did not care how noble your cause was. Segment 5, December 13th, 1920. Measuring a star and expanding reality. On December 13th, 1920, humans measured the diameter of a star for the first time. Albert Michelson and Francis Pease used an interferometer at Mount Wilson Observatory to measure Betelgeuse, turning a red dot in the sky into a physical object with size. This was revolutionary. Stars weren't abstract lights anymore. They were enormous, violent, real things. Betelgeuse turned out to be so massive it could swallow the orbit of Mars, which really humbles your commute. This moment mattered because it proved humanity could understand the universe not just philosophically, but physically. We weren't guessing anymore. We were measuring infinity. Segment 6, December 13th, 1937. Nanking and the collapse of humanity. December 13th also marks one of history's darkest chapters. In 1937, Japanese forces entered Nanking, and what followed was a 6-week collapse of morality. Mass executions, widespread sexual violence, entire neighborhoods erased. Conservative estimates count over 200,000 deaths. Some estimate 300,000. Numbers fail here because cruelty exceeded comprehension. Amid the horror, civilians found refuge in the Nanking Safety Zone, led by John Rabe, a man whose party affiliation makes this story even more complicated. Humanity failed catastrophically, but a few people still tried to shield the innocent, proving that even on the worst days, resistance exists. December 13th reminds us that progress and atrocity can occupy the same century, sometimes the same calendar square. Segment 7, December 13th, 1972. Humanity's last footsteps on the moon. On December 13th, 1972, Apollo 17 astronauts Eugene Cernan and Harrison Schmitt completed humanity's final moonwalk to date. They collected orange soil, discovered evidence of volcanic history, and proved the moon wasn't just dead rock. And then they left. Cernan's words echoed as a promise. They would return. We haven't yet. Not because we can't, but because priorities shifted. Flags came down, budgets tightened, dreams got spreadsheets. December 13th marks both a peak and a pause. Humanity touched another world, then looked back at Earth and said, "We'll circle back." Segment 8, December 13th, 1981. Poland locks down its future. In 1981, Poland declared martial law. Phones went dead. Tanks rolled in. Solidarity leaders were arrested overnight. The government claimed it was preventing invasion. The people understood it was fear. Martial law crushed dissent temporarily, but permanently destroyed legitimacy. The regime survived a few more years, but December 13th planted the seeds of its collapse. Sometimes repression doesn't end movements. It fossilizes them until the pressure breaks the system entirely. Segment 9, December 13th, 2001 to 2007. Terror, capture, and a rewritten Europe. December 13th, 2001 brought an attack on India's parliament, nearly triggering war between nuclear powers. December 13th, 2003 brought Saddam Hussein's capture, a symbolic victory that failed to deliver peace. December 13, 2007 brought the Treaty of Lisbon, reshaping Europe and quietly creating the legal exit ramp later used by Brexit. These events share a theme: systems under stress. Terrorism, regime change, and integration all expose how fragile order really is when humans try to engineer stability. In conclusion, December 13th is history without a filter. It shows us what humans do when they explore boldly, believe fiercely, plan poorly, calculate brilliantly, and fail catastrophically. It's a date that refuses simplicity. Light and darkness don't alternate here. They coexist. A day where humanity proves repeatedly that it is capable of mapping the stars, stepping on the moon, and still needing a candle to remind itself not to lose the light.